we have a foot on either side of the veil. And we straddle that a lot because we are supposed to be here. And our passion, I'm speaking for myself, but I'm sure this is Jeanne too. Our passion is to help open a window and help bring in some fresh air and open a mindset that says there is a possibility, there's more. And by the way, they're still alive. They're still alive.
Welcome to Soul Explorers with your hosts, Gary Langley and Sally Taylor. Welcome to Soul Explorers with your host, Sally Taylor. My name is Gary Langley, and today we have a really great show for you. We have Jeanne Love and Regina Ochoa. They're both mediums, and they're connected with the Cosmic Voices Network. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Sally.
Oh, you're welcome. We're so pleased to have both of you. If you don't mind, start us off by telling us a little bit about how the two of you came to work together, because that is why we have two guests today, is because you are so intricately connected in the work that you're doing. Could you give us a little bit of background on that?
Sure. I was, I'd already had, I was 22, just had my little girl, first child, and we've lived in a trailer park, and I wanted to get back into shape from my mother thing. So I was out passing around flyers for exercises, and I was going to lead some groups. So I got down to Jeanne's place, and I didn't know her yet. And I saw this woman from outside. This woman passed the window, and she had a golden pyramid, a metal pyramid on her head. And I looked at her and she didn't, I don't know if she saw me, but I thought, oh God, I've got to meet this woman. So I went around, knocked on the door, and she opened the door, and I said, "Where have you been all my life?" And she said,
"I'm here now.
For you.
waiting
for you."
And that was the start.
That was it.
And our daughters were really close. The first daughters were real close in age. And then we had our second babies, very close in age too. And Regina and her husband are from the Southern California area. And so am I. But I had moved up to outside of Santa Cruz in Aptos, California, because I was getting a divorce from my daughter's father. And so here we were. We had to go up to a smaller area to meet each other. And it just never stopped after that.
And were you both working mediums when you met? Were you both working?
I was more than she was, because I'm 7 years older than she is. And I had started my quest. I really wanted to know God. I was raised a Quaker, so I was already in tune for listening to spirit. I felt very connected to God through my singing, because I was a classically trained soprano. I was actually going to be a concert singer, but then I decided against it for various reasons and went into education. But it was all my part of really wanting to know God. And so I was led from the Quaker experience and then into Unity and Science of Mind in my mid-20s. I got to go to Unity Village. I had experiences and met healers, Olga Worrell, others from, I can't even remember their names now. And it just, as a young kid, I was young, it just blew me away. And I started to develop, and my first spiritual teacher, I was working in the Unity bookstore. I had quit my teaching job, and I was working in the Unity bookstore in Whittier, California. And this little tiny Italian lady came up to me, and she poofed her hair really high to make her look like 5 feet tall, but she was 4'11". And her boyfriend looked like Cochise. He came in, he was like 6'4" and huge. And she said, "I'm looking for Jeanne. Are you Jeanne?" And I go, yeah. And she goes, "Well, I'm a spiritual minister. I'm credentialed. And she said in meditation the other day, I was given your name and I was told to come to this place and teach you everything I know. So that's how that started. And she did for 2 years. We were just thick as thieves. And then things progressed. And that's when I moved up to the Bay Area and then met Regina, and the teaching continued, and it just went from there. It's amazing. So
Well,
that's how we started.
tell us a little bit about how Cosmic Voices came about.
Our friend Cindy Spring, she wrote The Greater Reality, and was writing a series at the time, and she was on book number 2. And she was writing it with an author from the other side, Francis Vaughn, transpersonal psychologist, well known. And so Cindy was writing this book. And in the book, Francis continued to say that there were going to be universal upheavals and that we needed to prepare ourselves, or everybody we were with, basically, to be prepared. There's going to be upheavals. And this put a little bit of concern, but then we started having all sorts of things: COVID, the political scale, the all sorts of things. Everything just started coming, and she was going, "Oh my gosh, what can we ask the spirits on the other side?" And at the time, she and I were doing a lot of work together. I was working with her with readings, but her guiding her through her education of spirit. She said, do you think I could contact anybody on the other side to see what they have? What's their opinion of this? Could you, I said, well, I don't know. I'm sure they've got an opinion. And she goes, well, we need some guidance. We need something. I said, well, I'll give it a try. And then I visited with Jeanne. I said, hey, Jeanne, you interested in doing this? And she goes, yeah, we can do this. And so lo and behold, literally from the moment Jeanne and I said yes, the spirits started showing up. And in Cindy's thought platform, she was expecting to have real earth-shattering ideas and guidance stuff, and was surprised that there were amount of celebrities coming through, or this is and that. And, she had her thoughts as to how she expected it to be, but was really surprised what was coming through. And the more that was coming through, the threads of the voices became stronger and stronger. And so she decided, well, let's produce this put it on a website. Let's go do something with this now. And Dan Drayson was all game to say, I'll put the website up. I'll do this. I'll help you. And there wasn't, for Jeanne and I, as far as editing, the messages were so strong, so clear. There was little editing but punctuation and a few things. And then there was any questions from Dan going, what exactly did they mean? Both Jeanne and I would be able to go back to the guides or our spirits, whoever spoke, and make it clear what they wanted to say. If Jan didn't understand it, then somebody else may not understand. So it was a phenomenal process. And then both Jeanne and I, we both had to pause for whatever life has for us. And COVID, that was during COVID. So then it was afterwards. Now, both of us over this time have still been writing, listening to the voices. And so we're now pulling more together, going through our writings and finding those pieces that they had brought through so that we could do another upload to Cosmic Voices for 2024.
That's excellent. I'm glad to hear there's going to be more added to it. Robin Williams seems to come through a lot, and I have a feeling he's here today. I just feel that energy. Tell us what role he's played in Cosmic Voices and in your lives.
Robin is a person that I feel I've known many times before. It was always assumed because of my musical skills that I would be more known for, performance, being out in, not Hollywood, but the musical arena. But I had no interest in being that I lived in the Southern California area, and I there were circumstances where I was in studios and singing and stuff. I had no interest in it. I went to school with Bob Guccione's daughter, Tony. That's an interesting story in itself, but I just had no interest because there was so much ego, there was so much lack of authenticity. It was something I just couldn't participate in. But I was always there, and I thought I would use my skills to be more of a minister in unity and travel because there's some incredible speakers that influenced me through that years of experience with them, and it would take on that kind of a situation. Well, little did I know it wasn't going to be that like that. But when Robin, I've had the first person that I channeled when I was first starting at this was Freddie Prinze Sr. when he committed suicide. And he died on my mother's birthday, which also was the anniversary or the later, the Challenger disaster. And it was my first experience. I sat with him for a few days and had him just write through me to process, his passing, why he went. I don't have that material anymore, but it was an experience because I didn't quite expect that. But that's when I was fully in training to become more of a medium. I never went at this work to be psychic or a medium. I went at it, more of a spiritual training and more of a spiritual awakening to help people improve their lives and feel the energy of God or whatever they call that to be. So that was my first real big experience with a famous person. And then things kind of just went away for a while. But then John Lennon, when he passed, of course, his death just affected millions and millions of people. And it was just after Double Fantasy came out. And he said, "Oh, I want to write through you," because I was writing some music. And he goes, "Oh, I want to write through you." I said, "No, I don't write your type of music. I wanted to do my own thing." But anyway, he's always been a constant also. So I was being prepared in some ways to be okay with, personality that was known publicly. But when Robin passed, when he came to me, and I'd already dealt with a lot of other, famous people and all the Challenger stuff and everything, but the camaraderie I felt with him and the connection I felt with him was a little bit different than with other people. Other people, they came in, I helped them out, but this was friend. This was friend, and the one reason all of the more famous people would stay with us is because they said we wouldn't run to the National Enquirer or any kind of tabloid to say, oh, I've got the spirit of so and so. And so they stuck with me, and then they stuck with Regina too for the same reasons, because we were there to help them just like we would any friend. And he has been a constant in when there are times when I would get depressed and saddened because there's just a lot of things going on, and he would just lift our spirits. He was the comedian, but he also was the person that was cheering us on to keep going, to not give up, because we thought that everything was just pretty much gone with the Challenger stuff and all of that. And, we're aging, and I certainly am. And so he would just, lift us up and keep us going and come in as little joy spirits. And then he'd come through other people, like I said earlier, and say something. And it was just made me smile. It just reminded me of how there's just there's a breath away. When my daughter passed, she just turned 31, and she used to stand in my doorway in my room and say, "Can I just tell you, Mom? Can I just say?" And I would see her continue to do that after she left. And that was one of the things that was so heavy on me for so long. But Robin, would come in, and others would come in and just, get over yourself, Jeanne. I know it's really sad. I know you're really having a hard time, but let's go. Let's keep going. Just one foot in front of the other. So I would say really was my cosmic cheerleader. I had an experience with Robin in a dream space. I'm sure he's been this way for others. I don't ever feel that it's just exclusive to me or Regina. But I remember in the dream space, Robin was sitting on a little rock. We were outside somewhere, and I was sitting on another little rock, and we were just looking at each other going, "Hey, hey." And then I looked over at him, and he looked over at me, and he goes, "I love you." And I looked at him and I said, "I love you too." But it was this spiritual engagement of the heart. And I'll never forget that because it was so clear and present in my dream space. And people can make those kinds of connections and not be afraid that they're schizophrenic, that they're losing their minds, because, the only thing that goes is the suit. And that's what my daughter used to say to me, Mom, I'm right here. I'm still right here. It's just my body that's gone. And, cultural mores and belief systems have pulled us apart from that understanding. The humor, the dedication, the heart that he has is really inspiring to me.
Regina, then what instigated your interaction with him as well? Because I know you've both communicated with him and he's come through, and he is one of the famous people or the well-known people that is listed with a transcript on the Cosmic Voices website. How has that continued to evolve, and why in particular for, sorry, I'm sorry, but I have one more little
why
add to
in
that.
Particularly us, right?
Yeah, well, not just you, but also why
question.
Famous people in general willing to come through in this way?
Very good question. I am asked that so many times, and I know Jeannie is too. Or I'm assuming Jeannie is. Maybe they don't even touch Jeannie. But I am asked all the time, why you? What makes you better than the rest of us? And that's what the comment is usually about. And my response is, why not? And what do you know about me that says I do not know anybody of importance? What do you know about my background? Nada. But the reality is for me, as far as famous people, I don't have famous people coming through. I don't have the celebrities normally, not normally, sometimes.
When I first discovered that Robin was also trained in rescue, which she talks about in the Matthew Perry article that will be on Cosmic Voices pretty soon. When I was doing readings, I was working with a great community in the South Bay of Southern California, a wonderful group of Japanese Americans. And one lady came to me and she was so distraught because her husband had taken his own life about a year prior to that. And they had little children. And the little 2-year-old had witnessed his father, who took his life by suicide with hanging. And they still owned the house that this happened in. It was a big older home, beautiful wood. I could see the whole thing, which was still in Japan because she traveled back and forth on business. And I realized right away that her husband's spirit was still in the house. He had not gone over. And the minute I realized this, who was there but Robin? Because Robin knows that whole experience. And it just blew my mind because I very distinctly saw him, sitting on the floor and, with his knees up and right next to the gentleman who was still sitting there after he had passed. And he just sat there so calmly and just kind of talked to him like in Good Will Hunting, just talking to Matt Damon. And it was profound. And then he was able to move his spirit. And I talked about this to the wife that was there for the reading. And she could feel it too. And it brought her such peace because she wasn't sure what had happened to her husband in terms of his spirit and his energy and such. And that's, I think, if I remember correctly, that's the first experience I had with Robin as going in to help those who had taken their lives. And he's done that because I do get people who come to me with their children who've taken their lives or other things have happened or they've died tragically. And he's not there for all of them, but certain ones that he knows he can help. And to me, that's something special, so it's another way he's influenced me, certainly. Anyway, it's just amazing.
I got to tell you, when I expressed my gratitude a moment ago to them for being willing to work with those of us on the earth plane that are essentially sleepwalking, I'm talking about in general, I got this feeling of, oh, and a heart hit from Robin. And my heart's just wide open right now. Thank you, brother.
Absolutely. I think sometime you might want to think about having a podcast just for Robin Williams to entertain and give you like an hour's worth of comedy response.
And will you come back and do that for us?
Yeah, because if I don't, I will be haunted forever, just like Patrick Swayze in the movie Ghost. I'm gonna be the eighth I am, because and that's another thing we've had with Patrick Swayze. Both Regina and I've had incredibly funny experiences with him as well. And the reason why they're public figures is because they are public figures, and it's easier for us to have the liberty of sharing their stories. And if we were to share stories about the person down the street and the relatives were not happy about it because they aren't public figures, but because these are people who are known, they're going to be talked about. Things are going to come out, because we talked about that in Cosmic Voices when we were putting everything together, how that would be. But it also has just been my realm of experience. I mean, it's my contract.
And when we're talking about these particular people, it's also because some of the work that they did while they were here in the physical was very much geared around these metaphysical life after death topics, you know? And so it's funny because I'm an artist by background and I have taught pottery classes. What do you think is the number one question I have received from pottery students? Is it anything like in the movie Ghost? You know, and they want date nights, you know, learning to make pottery. And I'm like, well, it can be. But the fact is that those movies and that media has such an impact on people's open-mindedness about these topics. And it gives me chills thinking about it.
Well, and the new series out called Ghosts that they had from British, and they brought it over to the United States. When I first saw the first year of it, I told Regina, "Oh my God, you got to see this. It's funny because that's what it's like for us. I mean, that's really what it's like for us." I said, "Whoever wrote this has had experiences because, you know, we hear that, we see them. Get out of my way. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to sit on top of you. You don't move." And you know, they've got lots of respect with boundaries and such. But you develop, it's a friendship, just like, you know, anybody we know who's physically embodied, and you just have, you know, you even have your little phrases and your little quirky things that you say because you get to know these people, you know, long enough. With the Challenger crew, I mean, people say, well, do you still contact with them? They're our friends. They are our friends, and the bond is just beyond. It's just beyond anything.
You were mentioning some of the backlash that you experienced around the astronauts that have transitioned. Do you want to talk about that a little bit and give us some examples of how that impacted you?
As we lived in the Aptos Santa Cruz area, I met a lady who became my accompanist, and she had moved, and her family had moved from Fresno into the Aptos area. They had a beautiful house, and we became friends because of that. And she knew all these interesting people, one of which was a gentleman named Bob Shacklet, who was he'd been high up in the Fresno State College physics department and dean of students and such. But he was also very much an alternate scientist in terms of knowing that there's more to life than just the physical body. And he knew others like Bill Goff, and they started Foundation of Mind Being Research. And because of her connection to Robert, when the Challenger cruise first started channeling through me and we recorded it, her son was living with us at the time, and he transcribed, and he goes, this has to go to the foundation, you know, and because this is the stuff they're researching. So that material was sent to them, and Bill Goff was high up in the Department of Energy, and he knew people who were connected in DC. And so he went to one person in particular, he never named him, concerning the information about how the crew passed away, because, you know, we thought they blew up initially, and the crew said, oh, no, we lived until we hit the water. And that piqued their interest. So they gave more information to this gentleman to see how accurate our channeling was, but he did not identify this as something that came through a medium. And the guy's face went white. Bill said he just looked sick to his stomach. He said, I knew this was going to happen. I knew this would come out. And this was without ever knowing the source or anything. So that started a whole thing. And because they had connections in the science world and in the Washington, D.C. world, you know, things started to really roll in terms of making connections and people that were going to do projects with it and further study and documents and documentaries. And then John Fuller, who was a writer of The Airman Who Would Not Die and The Ghost of Flight 401, was going to write the story. And we were thrilled. And I met John several times. I still have letters that he wrote to me because it was way before we had all the internet stuff. But from that, and the connections that FMBR had, they got in contact with Senator Pell's office from Rhode Island, and they had a big psychic research department. And so the gentleman, the scientist, put together some material to give to Senator Pell's office and to review it, because we wanted the families to have some kind of, closure and etc. Well,
we were naive.
The closest aide to Senator Pell's office, Scott Jones, PhD, we were in contact several times. And the last time we were in contact, there was this phone call, and I forget it because it was a spring, about probably a year and a half later, whatever. And he goes, Ms. Love, we know that your information is accurate, and that, yes, you really did have these experiences, and it was a tremendous, thing that you did for them. But, our country has really been really embarrassed by this. And we think that it would just be better if you make up little packets for the families and give that to them. And I went, oh my God. I knew it right then that we had to go underground because we had been identified, because they train one person on each flight to have some kind of remote viewing ability or contact in case the comm lines go down. And the Russians have done this. It's all documented. And we didn't know who it was and didn't pay much attention to it. But I always felt like I wasn't the first psychic that they had chosen to go through. And there's a long story behind that. But anyway, when we showed up, then we were flagged. And there were many other things that happened too. PSYOPs, terrible structures of literally destroying our family energies that were meant to stop us. They had done that to other psychics before. And Regina's had her own level of experiences as well. And so we just had to go underground. And that's why I developed doing my own work, doing personal development, doing readings, and then moving into this field of energy psychology, really, because I just felt I could be of service that way, but I couldn't risk being out in public again. I had a huge situation in Switzerland in 1989 when the Berlin Wall came down. It was an incredible experience at a big Psi conference. And I could have opened the door widely to my presence in Europe because they totally are different about these kinds of things. And I actually had a person that wanted to manage and promote me who was lovely. But my family was struggling because of all of this, and I couldn't not be there for them. So I made the choice to turn away from it. And it was hard, but I had to, I had to be there for my family. So and that was 89. It was only a few years after the Challenger situation. So really had to go underground and just work for my little area, my little bailiwick. And when FMBR contacted us many years later in 2017, he's like, oh my God, Regina, I don't know. Are you up for this again, to get back out into the public? But it's the best thing that could have happened, because now it's time, like you say. Years ago, this wasn't okay, and people didn't want to know, and they made great fun of you, and blah, 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 blah. That's right. A little mini version.
A show like this would not have been 10 years ago, even 10 years ago, even though some of us were very busy researching all of this stuff 10 years ago. It was a very limited field of people that were, one, doing it, and two, being outspoken about it.
And I think the internet has a lot to do with that, in allowing people to start searching more. Yeah. However, we've also in a generational, I believe, individuals who are no longer able to withstand what is it called? The control that strict religions are imparting. And they're looking, they're searching, they're hungry. People of all ages are hungry, and the older ones are getting closer to their own passing or transition, and they're going, I wonder Did I live a good life? Am I going to hell? Am I going to heaven? Am I going to, start pray. Wait a minute, this isn't the answer. I don't know, blah, blah, lots of questions. And both Jeanne and I get these people seeking, coming forward to us personally. So our work is constant. And the channeling is almost constant because they're with there's friends, there's spirits, it's
Sure.
not a channeling. Jeanne and I are just almost, we have a foot on either side of the veil. And we straddle that a lot because we are supposed to be here. And our passion, I'm speaking for myself, but I'm sure this is Jeanne too. Our passion is to help open a window and help bring in some fresh air and open a mindset that says there is a possibility, there's more. And by the way, they're still alive. They're still alive. And, the first time I channeled, it was how many years? Let's see. It was 1986 is with the Challenger, right? 86? Yeah. That was the very first year I channeled somebody of celebrity status, but that was because it was Richard, the commander, Richard Scobie. And he came through on my birthday, 3 days after the accident. And he came through, and to talk to a scientist I was working with. I don't know if you know of the individual named Marcel Vogel. He was the crystal, became later Marcel Vogel. Yeah. Anyway, he and I were working together and goofing off. And we were working on throwing our energy, and he was measuring it with this new machine that he had just gotten. He wanted to measure, your auric field, because that was the only language I knew. I had very limited language skill of what was going on or what I knew. Jeanne was teaching me. I had lots of skills, but I didn't know what they were. And Jeanne was the one who was helping identify them and go, oh, well, in order for you to feel this, you need to do this and this and this. So she was really honing things that I was born with that I didn't. I thought everybody had, actually. Jeannie was the one who really said, no, nobody's got those. This is yours only. We'll figure this out. And I was 22 when we met, and she literally took me under her wing and said, you've got some talents here. And I thought, nah, I'm just nobody. I'm a mom. I'm 22. I'm going to have kids. That's my life. They told me at school I wasn't worth much more than that. But Jeanne was the one who really was my mentor and totally best friend. I fell in love with her completely. Spiritual love. Girlfriend love.
It sounds like you guys were meant to spend this life working together.
And we really have, Sally. And the best part about this is the friends we've met along the way. I live out here, and there are more cows out here than there are people. My nearest neighbor is 3 miles away. That's a church in between the nearest neighbor. And I have so many people who walk with me every single day. Every day. And sometimes you just say, go away. Why are you here? Oh, well, we want to talk. We want to talk. We have something to say. And I'll sit down, and pretty soon my hands are going a million miles an hour because I'm channeling, and it's automatic writing. And they're just a million. And I just had this week has been overwhelmingly incredible. I can't wait to go through it all and get it posted to Cosmic Voices, but just entities. But the Challenger people, the Challenger crew, and the Columbia crew. I've got the Apollo crew with me a lot too. Gus Grissom often is with me in my living room or something. Neil Armstrong, every now and then he pops up, and I'm just overwhelmed. And I think to myself, why me? Just like you were talking about, Sally. Why me? And I always hear, why not? What makes me not capable? What makes me not honorable? What gives me no integrity? None of them. I work with integrity, and I honor every one of those entities who come through in the most deeply, deeply, best way I can. And that's all I can say. Why not?
Well, and the other part of that is people don't understand that we make contracts and we have, we've made
Yeah.
promises. And so it might just seem like we're random people, but we're not. We've set this all up way before time and we've done this before and we continue to do this. But if people are not aware of that and that's not in their wheelhouse, there's no way they're going to understand that. They're going to see it as a single situation rather than a construction of a huge field of passionate beings and spirits working to help the planet, move itself along. And when Gary, you asked about, planetary shifts, I don't have a traditional spin on, oh, we're moving to the fourth or fifth or sixth dimension. Oh, we're going to be rescued and our planet's going to be saved. I'm a big Sethian. If you know anything about Seth and about his multi-level dimensional energies, at the same time that I was working with the Challenger crew, Seth was very present. In fact, I'm writing that with Jane Roberts for the book, and how she gave to me the next level of working with Seth. And I've had Seth confirmed as being in my space by someone who experienced him with Jane in her study groups. I gave a wonderful, well, it wasn't me, Seth gave a wonderful series a couple of years ago on the fact that, we're here to evolve. We're really not here to save anyone or anything. We're here to evolve. In the process of our evolution, if we are led then to do stuff for humanity, that's wonderful. But we need to put the right perspective, the correct perspective on why we're doing something. And like you said, Gary, earlier, there's no ego involved. We just want this out there for people. And the energy of Seth is the same kind of oversoul energy to remind people why we're really here and to take the pressure off, because when people feel this obligation, a lot of light workers do that, oh, I have to do this because I have to meet my contract, I got to do this. But there's so many variables, and what we found with the challenge such a situation was when people didn't step up when they said they were going to, and things just changed all the time because of that variable of free will. And so that affects everything, and that puts pressure on all of us if we don't understand. And that's what I do with my energy psychology work. But anyway, the point of it is, from the perspective of Seth, who I really feel connected to, and I feel this way myself, we are here to evolve. We are here to evolve for, people say, oh, this is a teaching school. Well, for some, it is a teaching school. For others, we didn't need to be here and we're back again because we love this planet and we would like to help it maintain its balance and not get off kilter on its axis and be able to be this place of light and dark. My daughter Kylene has been profound in giving me information because she was raised in this from the other side. That's one of the reasons why she left, is so she could help us not lose what we came in to do. And she said, Mom, it's like there's three planets. There's the dark planet, there's this planet, which is light and dark, and then there's the first planet, the first Earth, she calls it, where it's just totally light. And we move through different aspects of that. And this middle planet gives us the opportunity to be in the darkness or be in the light, or have that experience and that exchange. And so if we're going up dimensionally, and Seth doesn't like that term, he likes the word system, because he says dimensions are much larger than we can even understand. He said, again, it's language. But if we could be an understanding of the fact that we came in here to evolve, and that we're, like eternal in that, and if it doesn't work this time, we can work it another time. More kudos to all of us. But in that connection, the understanding that it's all a movement within us. And that, again, is the Ho'oponopono. It's all within us first. How do we receive? How do we react to something? How do we work with something we don't have any control over? And how do we manage our own humanity? And, some people always say to me, well, I'm not coming back. This is tough. It's a tough life. And I just laugh. And I go, well, yeah, well, maybe right now you don't want to come back, but maybe there's a part of you that's already living here in a different time zone. We don't know until you really start to go inside the deeper parts of consciousness to find out who you are, how you made yourself. You're the creator. You are the creator. What did you create? What do you want to get from it? And when we have the understanding that we are the ones, and even though we might have had a really cruddy life, we chose it. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be as cruddy as it was, or maybe it didn't get as cruddy as we hoped it would be, but for whatever we wanted to walk through, it's our own individual perspective. And that's why I love working with Gandhi, who has worked with me since the Challenger. He works with others. I had confirmation of his presence with me by somebody who knew a cook for him many, many years ago. And this was in Switzerland. And I knew it, but then he came up to me, this little tiny old man, and after I'd given this channeling session with Gandhi at this conference, and he said, "Oh, I'm so glad to feel my master's presence again. I have missed him so much." And I'm like, holy moly. And I was so stunned, I really should have asked him more questions. But anyway, in terms of what the future is, it's like the Men in Black third movie with the five-dimensional being named Griffith. And what's going to coalesce? There are all these probabilities and possibilities. And what are we going to choose? What is the collective going to move us into? And that's what Gandhi was talking about, another writing that is going to go on Cosmic. It just got up on Cosmic Voices. Is the collective has a lot more power than it thinks. He said, how do you change things? You change things with the collective, and you look at his life and how he lived and how he directed people. He awakened a collective and made big changes because people come and say, "Oh my God, the world is in such a bad state." The statement now is WWGD, but it's what would Gandhi do? And that's when he came through and he wrote this whole piece about work within yourself and be that light, be that connected, and be that peace, be that knowing. And a lot of what I do for myself and what I others is I've had the luxury of seeing way beyond this earth and going to places my guides have taken me to that are just the most incredible places. And I've seen that even in the chaos, we are in order. Even in the chaos, we are in order and we are transitioning. We're trying to understand what God is now because that all is changing. And there's going to be chaos because we're being challenged to lose our old constructs of theory and ideas. And so we're, floundering. Well, what does that mean now?
I liked what you said about when you made the comment, we're the creators. This brings up a point, and maybe you could address it. Really important to do the inner work, to work on ourselves, because our thoughts do create.
Matter.
And when you see, we all know somebody who's always in a negative state, and it's perpetuated by the negative state. I mean, they keep having negative experiences after negative experiences. So guarding our thoughts and how we function in the world, I think is critically important. So, and if you'd like to comment on that.
Well, I watched the recent podcast with Victoria or Veronica, and she goes by V, the medium. And I was impressed with the clip that you put up because she said, you have to do the inner work. You have to be self-aware. And I went, I like that person because she knows when people come to me, can you teach me to be a better medium? Can you teach me to be a psychic? And it's like, I have a circular pattern of skills. You can't be a better medium or psychic unless you really are self-aware. You have to know what thoughts are yours and which aren't yours. You have to know if somebody's hanging on you and they're trying to redirect you into a place that you really don't need to go. There is so much energy out there and there's so much chaos out there. We need to be very aware of our influences and very self-contained, but also very self-aware. And, so when I say, well, I'm not going to teach you to be a spiritual medium because that comes with your self-clarity. You'll open up your gifts and then we can work with it. But I'll know then that you're going to see accurately and with a much clearer vision than an ego-centered philosophy and creation. And we all have it. All need to work with it and manage it.
Sure.
But it's all about the self. We say, oh, don't be selfish, but this is really important. It's selfish in a spiritual sense of understanding our creation and why we've chose things. And that's where a lot of my energy has been for the last 15, 20 years. It all depends on what people do, what coalesces, how big the collective gets towards one way or another. And that's why some psychics may say, oh, I see the end of the world, or others might see, well, I see it's going to be brilliant. I have a friend who's I won't identify him, but I have a friend that just, oh, it's going to be wonderful, everything's fine. And it's like, yeah, or it could be the other way. It just depends on who shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I tend to be encouraged because there's programs like this that have a demand for them now. people want to hear other people talking about these things and pondering them and exploring them. And so for me, that's a really encouraging state for us
Absolutely.
to be
And
in.
and we're going to be here regardless.
Yeah.
Might as well enjoy
Might as
it.
well make the best of it, right?
Best of it,
And
right.
and that was the one thing I was going to add when you said we're here to evolve and learn, and also to have fun doing it.
That's
Yeah.
why Robin is here and all the others.
Since you brought his name up again, let's try something. Let's try something a little fun. Does Robin? Yeah, there he is. Does Robin have a message he would like to bring through for the audience?
This is not me. This is him. Egads, have you not been listening to the last hour?
In his own words, let me finish my sentence. Yeah. If he would
He
like
put
to,
a few
to
he
leave,
put a few F words in there too.
yeah, well, that's okay.
It
We
has
allow
to be edited.
He goes, blankety blank, I have to be serious. That's another joke. Why so serious?
So serious.
Anyway, all right, Robin, what do you want to say now? You have more attention again. He goes, well, he says, and again, I'm interpreting for him because bringing him through energetically right now would require a different format. But he's right here, and he goes, first of all, he says, I'm hungry. He said, it's time for lunch. And the second thing he says, tell him about Oliver. So here's another thing, and then he'll get to the other part. So I have someone who'd been a client and is a really wonderful young man named Oliver, and he lives in Marin County, and he has to go through the Robin Williams tunnel all the time up there. But he didn't know that I was ever in contact with Robin. But he called me up one day and he goes, Jeanne, I had the strangest experience. I got to know what you think of this. He said, I went through the tunnel over to Marin, and he goes, Robin Williams jumped in my car and started telling me fart jokes all the way home. And I said, oh, yeah, that's Robin. You had a Robin experience. You had a Robin sighting. He goes, oh, that's good to know. I mean, I was just really wondering. And Robin is saying, that's the kind of impact, he says, that I want to make on people, is to catch them off guard and say stupid things or just things that are off the topic, out of subject criteria. He said, and stop people in their path from what they're thinking and stop the mind from this obsessive stuff. He said, when I was really struggling and we didn't really fully know what was going on in my mind, he said, I couldn't stop the obsessive compulsiveness of my dark thoughts. I couldn't close the door. Wow, this is new to me. He said, because I couldn't close the door, when I did take my life and take myself out of that to stop it, he goes, that's when I made my mind up and remembered that I could do something about it, which is to help people stop their randomness and their thinking that it's just nonsensical and contributes to any kind of chaos or randomness in the collective. And he said, I realized that I could use myself, my celebrity, not only to let friends know that I'm okay and thriving, but to help other people who are willing to have the experience of me coming in and kind of knock, are you in there? Stop for a moment. Pay attention. And he goes, it's a wonderful gift. He said, it's a gift I wouldn't have access to. Nobody would listen to me if I was the guy bagging groceries down the street.
You'd be crazy.
So I had to come in and the path that I followed, I chose the parents I did because I'd be alone. So I was forced to try to entertain myself. So I'd have, something going on in my life. And then from there, I built this reputation, which wasn't always successful because some people found me really annoying. He said, and they're the ones that needed me the most. And in my annoyance, it says, at least in my estimation, was them to stop. Stop the rhetoric, stop the obsessive compulsive, stop the dark thinking, stop the randomness, and just stop and pay attention. And just pay attention and just sit. And he said, people don't understand that I do sit. And I remember in the Stephen Simon interview, how he talked about how Zelda, Robin's daughter Zelda, loved that movie, What Dreams May Come, the most, because she said that is the closest you can get to what my dad was really like. She said that's how I remember him. And Robin definitely has that side of him. I've felt and experienced all the time. He pulls the comedian card in when he feels, we need some relief, we need some uplifting. Robin says, I will not go on record and say what I think this world is going to do. He said, I don't have the qualifications for it. He says, I'm not a guru. He said, I'm not even close to being like Wayne Dyer. He said, nor would I want to be, because I'm uniquely myself. I'm uniquely Robin, and I'm a unique snowflake. There's not going to be anyone else like me, because when we incarnate, we change our pattern all the time. He said, but what I do believe in is how humanity has tremendous power at its fingertips, but just is forgotten. I've shifted audiences thousands at a time when I would go on my comedy tours. And I'd have so many people come to me and say, oh, I love you in this, I loved you in that, you were so wonderful in this, you were so wonderful in that. He said, the one character, he said, that I think I would like to hold to today is Mrs. Doubtfire. And he says, for this reason, there's doubt about this being real, but there's a fire inside and a passion to find it to be true. And he said, I just made that up.
One thing I wanted to add to, and it's why I like seeing Robin come through so much, I feel that humor is so important. It takes you out of my story and makes you open up. It raises your vibration. When I do Zoom groups, and I'm on quite a few of them, I think I had 8 last week, I always, if there's a guest, I'll usually try and make them laugh before we actually go live, because that brings the whole energy up. And maybe I get that from Robin, it's just like his example, because it's so uplifting and takes you out of your head and opens you up to new possibilities.
I just have to say, because she won't leave me alone, is Carrie Fisher.
Oh.
And Carrie is like, you've had all the men, what about the women? Come on, we just had Women's Day yesterday. What's wrong with you?
Oh,
and
my
she
gosh.
talked about humor. And she's waving books, and she goes, look, I wrote all these books. Those guys, they're nothing. I wrote all these books. She wants her time in the story. But, she is another brilliant energy. And I have had we both have had very close connections. She's helped us both with writing. And because of her background, too, and there is a background in my family of drug addiction and abuse. And that's another thing that draws us together when at least people are with me, because my background, and they know I understand, and I'm not judgmental about it. But Carrie just wants to say, well, I'm available, and you don't even have to call my people if you want to use me and have me on the show one of these days, because I have messages too. And then she shows up all of her books.
We'll start setting dates.
Uh-oh, you're in trouble now.
I love this idea. If you two are game, I would love to do an episode where you just bring them through with messages, and we'll just let the whole thing be that. And
that would be great.
Chaos.
Oh my God.
Well, let's plan to do that. I really want to thank you both for coming today and spending some time with us. Also, I wanted to make it will be in the notes at the bottom of the page. CosmicVoices.network is where you go. It's not .net, it's .network, right? The whole word. So where you go to read some of these channelings, and certainly Robin is in there. And then Robin, be the master of ceremonies and gather up the important voices we need to hear from, and we'll do that episode at some point.
Oh my God, they're all ready. They've been waiting forever. They've all got their tickets. Oh my God.
Well, we'll schedule it when it works for you. Thanks again for being with
ladies.
us.
Oh, thank you. This was
Thank
wonderful.
you, Sally.
You're
Thank
delightful.
You,
We've
Thank you
really
both.
enjoyed it.
Oh, my word.
Okay, till next time.
Yes.
If you enjoyed this content, please hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications.